Hello everyone, how's it going? Man, it's fucking cold today. Jesus, I'm actually shivering while doing this. So, without losing any time, momentum, I saw this video, um, and I wanted to react to what Tectone has to say. First of all, I uh, I like Tectone. I didn't like him when he was talking about Genshin Impact that much, a couple years ago, because I was playing Genshin and I didn't really like his take. He was a bit too negative, you know. But on the whatever is happening to him personally, I totally agree what's going on with him. I don't know if he's going to talk about it. I only watched like 7 minutes, and I just said I know I have to talk about this because it's something that I actually like, and but I want to understand because I feel like Tecton is actually a little bit anti, what's going on Honkai Star Rail, Power Creep, and all that. And I have a somewhat different opinion. So I would like to see if we agree on certain things or not. So this is him reacting to to Brax, and I'm reacting to Tecton. So we'll see what goes on.
What do we need to talk about, Brax? Once again, I want to clarify. I don't know what this video is about.
Me
He's
neither.
just afraid that it's going to start war. So I encourage
I don't
my
know. I don't think
comments to
so.
be a little bit more reasonable, talk things out, not lay out anything too incendiary, and
Again, I don't know. I watched only about 7 minutes. I think, yeah, 7 minutes when he starts talking about Seele.
let's just be fair. How's that sound?
Yes.
Videos that I wanted to bring to my YouTube channel for a long time that have just been about the general state of Honkai Star Rail. Some related to like the things like global passive, some things related to
Oh, okay, here we go. Let's lock in then. All right.
power creep, some things related to the direction they've taken with some of like the story elements. But generally speaking, I don't really talk about it very much because I just don't really have a lot of time to make the videos. But today I want to talk about power creep and sort of what's happened with HSR.
First of all, my stance on per creep. Nobody asked me because I have no audience. But my stance on per creep is that uh, yes, we got a surge of HP inflation and all that. We talk we like we name it HP inflation, and yes, there's a little bit of power creep, but I still think HSR 27 of May is May. The state we are in 3.3. It's not that serious. This is my. I mean, don't burn me, but this is my stance.
And have kind of an open discussion about that. I'm here on with my Twitch chat, twitch.tv/Brax, and you guys can feel free to say whatever you want in the comments as well.
Great
We'll
stream.
probably be looking over it as well. So why do I want to talk about power creep? Well,
Also, he does really good guides. BRAXOPHONE does good guides. Thorough investigation. So I used to watch him more back in those days. Now I don't really watch um, much about Honkai unless it's news and all that, but not about sets and what's required. How because I'm an OG now. I am perfectly able to stand on my own feet.
Well, throughout Honkai Star Rail's lifespan, there's been a lot of new characters released. Every single patch is like 2 new 5-stars, and sometimes, once in a blue moon, we get a new 4-star. I think the last 4-star that we
Totally.
got was Moza.
Yes, it indeed. I talked about this. Moza is the last 4 star. It's fucking sad.
Sorry, I think is how you.
Holy shit. It's
Yep.
been since version 2.5
Yes.
that we got a
Sick.
new 4-star?
Sick.
Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. I mean, essentially, the way that Honkai Star Rail goes is whatever the new character is the one that's the most broken. Finon coming out is going to Miyabi Honkai Star Rail. I genuinely feel like it will. I think he's going to be tier 0 and everything, and I think there's going to be a major discrepancy between him and all pre-existing units, specifically damage dealers, and I think he is going to absolutely shit on the fucking game.
Yes, I also think the same, man. I said it in my video about Finon. I actually don't even like the mechanic because it's not really Honkai. It's not really a turn-based game. It's like he goes in, does the ultimate. He's only one against everybody. It doesn't really feel like an Honkai style game. So I don't like it. And yes, he's going to power creep the mechanic, not as much, as scaling and all that. Because Castoris and the Earth are still pretty powerful. but I don't like the mechanic, and also I don't like the fact that everybody is physical weak now, so he doesn't care about your weaknesses. So I don't really understand why they're bringing characters like this to the table. Like it's I don't understand.
You pronounce his name, and that guy was a long
Yeah, Honkai Star Rail has definitely committed to power creep 100%.
ass time ago, and then before
Yeah,
him was
we'll see.
Gallagher. They've really slowed down the 4-star content, I think. But like
Yes.
looking through all these characters, I have every single character on this account because I use it for content, and as you can see, like the amount of 4 stars there are it pales in comparison to the amount of 5 stars there are, and there's even some 5 stars down here that I just haven't leveled. Right, there's a pretty big difference in the amount of 5 stars and 4 stars in the game, and that's not inherently like a super big issue.
Sure.
But I do think it kind of adds to the power creep problem a little bit.
Me personally, I don't really think it matters too much.
I do think it matters.
To be completely honest, yeah, I mean, people are just going to be pulling for the new 5-star. I don't really think they need to be adding in 4 stars nonstop, personally, especially if they're just.
I'm not saying they need to add 4-star like always, but at least give the illusion that they are meaningful, because they are. Make them, like be really useful E6 or at E4, like the usual stuff. But they actually stopped making 4 stars. That's insane, to be honest, because it doesn't make sense. It makes sense to release a 4-star unit, which is dog shit, on E0, and it makes sense that it to be that way, and make it somewhat usable but not as powerful, or maybe as powerful or as useful as a 5-star if it's on A6, like Gallagher is super OP on E2 or E1, maybe when he does the cleanse, also when he skills, and well, even without it, he's still pretty useful. I mean, Gallagher is just good on E0 regardless. But characters like Lynx, characters like Mose, that maybe you do need some eidolons, to make him really work. But just release some 4 stars, man.
Just forgettable dog shit units. It's a point that a lot of people really die on, but me personally, I don't really care.
Because it makes people feel as though when a new character is stronger, they have to pull the new character because there's no other 4-star that's going to do their job at a little bit worse, which is a thing in a lot of other gacha games that you'll play. There'll be like a 4-star version of a 5-star character, and then like that'll be good enough. Whereas like I feel like because they're
The only instance we had it is like Misha and Jing Liu. I think that's the only, because the Honkai Star Rail don't play like that. They don't give us a 4 stars that are mini version of a 5-star. Not even Herta and the Herta. They play like they are two different things. No one does it. Yeah, there's no, every character is unique, and I'm really glad for that. The only one you could say by the way he plays is Misha and Jing Liu.
releasing so many 5-stars, it does kind of add to that. But anyways, the main
And that's a stretch because they do play differently also. So, but as for purpose, ice DPS, AOE.
argument that I have about this is that if you look at like 1.0 units, you have characters like Seele, who is still one of my favorite characters in this entire game. But nobody's going to argue that hitting 40 to 50k on a skill is like good.
Yeah.
Right. And then like obviously with the newer support characters, the newer ones that you can like giga buff with, Remembrance MC, Robin, Tribby, characters like those, right? So like with the newer units that came out, obviously she's going to be stronger, but she's not going to be on the same level as some of the other newer units.
Not
like,
even close.
You look like Acheron, for example.
Not
The
even
reason
close.
is just because this character came out sooner.
She just doesn't do as much. The problem with Seele is you have to be able to already crush the content in order to clear the content, because Seele is I need to outscale the fuck out of this or I lose. She's like,
Yeah, he's right. I mean, if you already are crushing, like, I mean, I think what he means is if you already have a good account, but if you just pull Seele and you want to power through the content that we have right now, that won't work. Even though Seele is still pretty good, and she does work on many teams. I actually saw a video, a super technical video, saying that if you wanted to 24 star this content, they had to use Seele. Of course, he had the best Seele, whatever, but she still is a 1.0 unit.
Like a win more character, it's useless.
Character came out later, and
I don't think it's useless.
they gave this character higher stats. Now, why is that a problem? Well, ultimately, at the end of the day, because there's no PvP in this game, technically power creep
There is PvP, it's on the forums.
doesn't really mean anything. As long as you are able to clear the main content of the game, which it's story content, it's simulated universe, and it's endgame content.
So power creep does matter, even in games that don't have PvP, because this means all returning players are going to be at minimum required to pull for 8 new units or 6 new units, because all of their old characters just don't fucking matter anymore. And also, for current existing players, they need to know that when they pull a new character, it's not going to be good for the longevity of the game, and they're going to have to pull a new unit every 6 months or so, which can lead to spending unwanted currency.
So my experience as a free-to-play, as I said, I have a video talking about this, how to beat power creep. I talked about the cycles of buffers. So basically, this game relies on the DPS that you need to clear content with, and then who she or he, the DPS, works with currently, and if he's going to get an update in the future. So I talked about it. Those are the units that you want. So Castor is getting the first let's say buff by the release of Hyacinth. Without Hyacinth, she could work. And now I think in the future, if you want to keep on using Castoris, you're going to need a Hyacinth or not. We'll see. I don't think that it's really mandatory. Like having is really, it's a strong word to say, having, might, need. I mean, I'll see, because I don't have Hyacinth. I have a Castoris with 3B, or my only buffer are 3B and the MC. So we'll see. But that's how Honkai plays with the buffers. Take for example the general. The general have been constantly updated, and it depends on the, well, you can say it's not always a harmony unit. Might be, like Aventurine is an upgrade to a standard healer DPS, a healer shielder on a Fei Shao team. Like Fei Shao really needs Aventurine for the best in slot. So that's an upgrade, you can say. But that's how I feel like Honkai plays with buffers.
That's why power creep still matters in a PvE game.
As long as you're able to clear the main content of the game and there's no PvP.
Not to mention, power creep also really matters because when people find a favorite character, their favorite character is going to slowly start to feel worse and worse, and people are going to fall out of love with the game because now they're being told you're not allowed to use that character anymore. Just like what happened with me with Kafka and Black Swan. So just want to address that.
Power creep really doesn't mean anything, because at the end of the day, a character being stronger than another character doesn't matter if you can
What happened to Kafka and Black Swan was really sad.
still do the job. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that. A lot of
Sure, I think that's absolutely fair. As long as you clear those characters, it doesn't matter. However, I will say the quality of gameplay that you get and the amount of frustration that you get is going to be very awful when Finon is able to zero cycle all content in the game with 5 actions remaining, and Kafka can clear MOC 12 with 9 cycles. It's just not going to feel as fun. It's not going to feel as good, and it's a artificial way to promote hype for a character. The devs basically admitting we didn't know how to make this character good enough or exciting, so we just made him really fucking broken. And I think it's just admitting that the devs are lazy as shit and unintelligent and don't know how to make a well and balanced game.
If people will say,
okay, well, power creep doesn't exist.
Well, I think he's right. It depends on if that's really the sentiment of the developers. They do have to play in the confinement of the game that they did. So to talk good things about the developers, they have to be aware on how the meta is shifting and all that, and still create good content. So that's difficult, to be honest. I'm not going to say that it's hard, because I don't know, but I think it is difficult, even though I don't know the entirety of it. So neither does Tectone, of course. We don't know if that's really the case. We will have to see when Finon hits. Um, we'll see.
because Seele can still clear the beetle when the beetle's in MOC.
But there is some nuance to this, and people like to throw that out the window. People like to pretend there's no nuance to anything on the internet. But there actually is nuance to this, because you take a look at
Let's
Seele,
see.
and Seele, yes, she can clear the beetle, but can she clear all of the content, and can she do it in a
Kafka buff is really good. If they put out a Kafka buff that's very good, I will go back to Honkai Star Rail and I will try the new MOC 12. Absolutely, I will. I would love to.
respectable amount of time? If you look at how many clears or cycles it would take Seele to clear harder content, it's going to usually be higher, assuming it's not the beetle, than other newer characters that have been released in the game. Like if you look at Seele versus maybe Castros or something, just as an example, right? Castros is another quantum scythe user, right? And all of the new content has been shilling out for Castros to make her feel better, but she's still a quantum character. So, I mean, obviously, if nothing else, you're at least not getting that 20% quantum res. So for the people that can still clear with Seele, it's not really a huge deal, but it doesn't feel good to go up against like Pollux, try to pull out Seele because, oh yeah, like, you know, this is a boss made for Castros, who's a quantum character, so surely I should be able to beat it with Seele, right? Taking Seele into Pollux doesn't feel very good. And taking Seele into any content where you can't just one-shot the ads doesn't feel very good.
So this is what I don't understand what he's saying. What is good, to be honest? I mean, this it's a pretty important thing that we need to establish. Is what is your goal? My goal is to get 20 cycles. I have never considered doing a zero cycle because I know at this point it's pointless to get a zero cycle. I'll never get it because I know that I have to depend on Eidolons, and that's it. That's the only thing I can hope of. I can hope is pulling a 4-star only 20 cycles. That would be great for me. Great. That would be. I'd like to do that, to be honest. I'd like to really to do that. But well, maybe I will. You know, we'll see. But this is precisely. I think that he's not getting into it because maybe he doesn't want to elaborate on it. What's not feeling good? Because if I had a Seele that can clear Pollux, that's it. My point is, I mean, in this case, I don't understand. I mean, yeah, I actually pull for characters that I need to clear the MOC. Um, if I need this character, I will pull for it for the MOC because I want to get the 36 stars. That's what I want. If I don't have to pull Castors, if I don't have to pull Finon for that, I won't pull it. I won't pull for it. But that really depends on who you are. Do you care about the 20 cycles? If yes, you will do certain things. If not, you're not going to do that certain things. But what he says is pretty subjective, to be honest. What do you mean? Doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the bigger issues with Seele that I found and that a lot of other people have found is that Seele, the reason she was so strong was, one, she obviously like had some of the highest multipliers when she first came.
They need to make Seele's ultimate refresh if she kills a unit. And I think that would make Seele viable.
Out, but also another reason is
think
that she
she's
can
viable.
one-shot a lot of the ads. One-shot the ads, and you can get your surgeon's window, which lets you.
I think she's viable because she's a 1.0 unit. I don't expect Seele to be used anymore. If there's somebody using Seele to this day right now, that's awesome, and that's why I don't understand why Brax says that it doesn't feel good. If you can use your Seele and clear Pollux, that's amazing. You're using a character that was released when the game started, like 2 years ago. That's crazy.
Buff and attack the boss, and something like that is a really good mechanic for her. But when the ads and when the enemies get HP inflated, when they get more HP to the point
Yeah,
where
it's
you can't
harder.
just one-shot everything anymore, then it becomes problematic
harder,
for her
yes.
because then half her kit doesn't work. She's kind of hot though. That's true. Yeah, thank you, Morgan Topkick. Yeah, no, you're right. 100%. Basically, all this is to say that, like, when a new character comes out, obviously the company wants to sell a character, and to sell the character, they make it so that that character functions very well in the new content, and it makes it so that some of the older units don't function as well in some of the newer content. Speaking of which, if you want to get any of the new characters, then I recommend checking out today's sponsor.
Topping up is expensive, and a lot of us have probably seen the numbers in the shop on our accounts.
Yes, I love LD Shop.
And it's jokes. If you guys don't know,
It's so
Pollux is the
good.
boss where it has like a ton of resistance, basically like 90% resistance. So all of the damage that you do to the boss is reduced by 90%.
Yes.
Up until you fill up this little circle underneath its HP bar. Once it gets to 100%, Pollux vomits
Nice.
all over you and then starts to take regular damage again. Pollux also drain all of your HP down to 1.
Man, it sure would be nice to have a global passive there, huh? In case
I don't understand why he's so focused on Pollux. People were using Seele on the MOC before, and still using Seele. So I don't understand why he's so focused. Of course, there's gonna be a new boss, and you won't be able to use Seele. I mean, that's just how life works. That's how it is. I know. I mean, I know he's quantum weak, so you can actually use Seele, but I mean,
something goes wrong.
So not only does this character work really, really well for casters, but on top of like just the mechanics of the
Yes,
defense
it
being
works for
absurdly
casters.
high, the resistance being absurdly high, and then just disappearing and letting you just wail on it forever. On top of that, you also get your HP drained to 1, which means that Casteress gets a ton of charge towards her dragon again. So this
Indeed.
enemy is literally made for Casteress to
Yes.
look good. And because of that, it makes it feel like, okay, well, if you don't pull Casteress, this is just way more difficult and it's not worth it. But at the end of the day, the other argument still stands that if you can clear this side in 5 cycles, then you can clear this side in 5 cycles. It doesn't really matter. It's gonna feel worse, but it doesn't really matter. You know, I don't think anyone is going to deny that the damage ceiling of characters has gone up. The amount of damage that characters are seeing normally throughout their functionality is much higher than it used to be.
I think it's very telling that Seele's ult used to be the highest hitting ability in the game, and now there's characters that can AoE that same damage on each target in one move.
Well, I don't think that is really something that adds. What Tectone says, I think that's normal. To be honest, that's normal. Yeah, on the beginning of the video, he says something true. Hitting 40k on a skill is absolute trash. Yes, by today's standard, yes, it is. I mean, that I see nothing wrong. I see people using Seele to this day, trying to clear content. Of course, having a good Seele, I don't know, with eidolons, with whatever you want. I think they're having fun, to be honest. I don't see what the problem is.
And if that doesn't tell a story, I don't know what does.
Now, a lot of
I
that
don't think
is
that
due to new
tells the
supports,
story.
but a lot of that is also just multipliers of stats. Like some characters, especially the newer HP scaling ones, I think they're pretty absurdly strong.
Also, I like to say that yes, this MOC, the first wave, Pollux, made for casters. Yes, it's even the story, the lore is related to casters, and I don't really think that's a problem. We've been saying that ever, to be honest. When Kafka and Black Swan, when Black Swan was released and the DOT got a certain resurgence, we saw many wind and lightning weak enemies. So I mean, why? Because, and you know that mechanic, that the thing into nothing, whatever, the boss at the end of Penacony, well, in the middle of the end of Penacony, like undo into nothing, whatever that boss name. I don't remember. I don't remember the name. Like if you had the dot team that worked pretty well. It was also weak to imaginary. I saw people clearing it with wealth, delaying his actions like crazy. So yeah, but that was back in 2.1, you know. So then Firefly got released, and everybody was using a break meta, a break team. Of course, if you had Firefly, you were golden. The actual MOC boss when Firefly was released was a joke if you had Firefly, but you were still able to clear it if you had a break DPS. You could use Kafka as a break DPS. You could use many units as a break DPS, and nobody complained. I don't know. I don't remember that people complaining. But yeah, it was a boss made for Firefly also.
And then Hyacinth is a good example too. This is we were all shocked when Adventuring was coming out swinging with 20k to 50k follow-up attacks on a preservation character. We were like, oh my god, that's like a lot of damage, right? But then you have Hyacinth, who's literally doing Jinglu skill damage every single time she heals. So
yeah, Hyacinth does a lot of damage. I don't have it. I played on the story, and she does a lot of damage. I was so wrong about the damage that she. Well, I wasn't wrong. I was saying it depends on the damage that Hyacinth does. We don't know. Now we know, and yeah, it's pretty good.
it's
pretty
kind
good
of,
damage.
It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
And obviously there are team setups that she needs to heal a ton for that to happen, but it still is quite a bit of
The fact that Hyacinth can do more damage as a healer than Seele can do as a damage dealer is insane.
power locked behind one character that's not even a
Again, I don't think it's insane. Seele is a 1.0 unit.
DPS character. Really puts some older units to shame.
You want to know why they had to make Hyacinth broken? Because she looks like shit.
So is power creep a problem then? It kind of depends on the lens that you have.
Yeah, Hyacinth
because
doesn't really.
once again, if you can clear out the content, it doesn't matter. But very clearly, there is.
Why is it not? Brax is not talking about Chinchue, about being a viable option. Because if I had a Chinchue with a Sunday and good, I think I can beat Pollux. I'm gonna make a video. I wanna do it with the Gambler. I think I can pull it. So he's talking about Seele. Seele is a single target DPS. Chinchue 4-star unit E6. Everybody has it. I think that she works much better. I think I cannot say for certain 100%, but I think I can pull it off. Because I want to do a 4-star run. I'm not gonna be able to do it, but maybe I can do a 5-star run instead of Castoris. I'm gonna slot Chinchue.
Is an increase in the damage that's going out, and there is an increase. This has actually been confirmed. There is an increase in the HP pools that enemies actually have in MOC, which does, in addition to the shilling of specific bosses that work for specific characters, make it so that those characters become more necessary and older characters feel worse. If you are someone that wants to always clear endgame in a ridiculously short amount of time, then honestly,
that's not
I
the
think
issue.
that we can say yes, power creep is a problem. But
Yeah, totally. If you want to clear it in 28 cycles, 29 cycles, 0 cycle, yes, of course. But that's insane. That's insane, man. I mean, you do need. I mean, but this is something that was clear years ago. Just years ago was clear. Last year is the same. You could not have done it. Maybe in some instances, yes, with a good, very good build artifact. But now, yes, of course, you need a premium team to get a 0 cycle.
I think that if you're someone that's okay clearing it 5 cycles on both sides, and you don't really feel like you need to have the newest unit every time because you can do it with your older units, then that's great. And
the problem is, if you're clearing with exact time 5 cycles on both sides right now, in 4 months, you're not going to be able to clear that anymore. You're not.
Yeah, that's totally right. Tectone is right. In 4 months, yes.
You're not. And I challenge anybody to use a 1.0 team in the current MOC on both sides.
I'm gonna use
and just try to clear. You just won't be able to do it. And that's the problem, is that the longer the game goes on, the worse it's going to get, because there's no reason for them to stop right now.
Then power creep isn't a problem, it's just present.
But I don't understand what the problem
deny that
is.
power creep is a thing, but I also don't think that power creep is always a problem to every single person at every single time. Now, something that
it won't be a problem until it is. Just like death. Dying isn't a problem until it is, but it's going to happen.
worries me is seeing Hyacinth come out and seeing how much damage this character does compared to what previous sustainers were able to do. Because that was not a small jump. That was no small jump. That was a pretty big.
I think that Hyacinth still what she does is healing. So you don't rely on her damage. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but you cannot use Hyacinth as a DPS. So we'll see if he's right. I mean, he will be right when maybe the next MOC depends on the HP. How are they going to stack the HP on the next? And maybe the exact residual damage that Hyacinth brings to the table is enough. But as of now, she does extraordinary damage. I've seen it, and I don't know why she does that much damage, because of the HP scaling, I guess. So, but as of now, at least it's not a must pull. She's still a healer.
Big jump in damage. Pretty significant. I've seen some charts going around where people deny that damage has been going up. They say like it's been pretty much in line since Acheron. The problem is that a lot of those charts that I have seen, I don't actually have them on hand, so I can't put them on screen, but maybe you guys know what I'm talking about. The problem is with all those charts that I've seen, there's been a couple of things. One is that tend to focus on 3-target combat, which would negatively affect Erudition characters. And in addition to that, they usually have a set number of cycles. And lastly, they would balance out the cost of teams. Now, there's this arbitrary cost system.
Well, that's the other huge issue with erudition characters is that the majority of combat is 3 targets, right? So it's not that these graphs are wrong. It's kind of like the way that the game is balanced. The majority of fights are 3-target fights, which is why erudition as a whole is usually a lot weaker than every other archetype.
That the community made up to assess like free-to-play friendliness. I don't really subscribe to it, but I understand functionally how it works. The problem is that some characters can use low investment teams and hit their damage ceiling, and other characters cannot use low investment teams and hit their damage ceiling. And what we should be calculating for is actually clearing content, hitting the damage ceiling, and the right amount of enemies, as opposed to a static amount of enemies and a static type of teammate. It really does feel like in that way, when you calculate it that way, it feels almost like math is being used dishonestly to prove an agenda or prove a point. And that is a big problem we have in the Star Rail community already. Yo, post-editing, Brax.
I don't know about that one.
Max here.
Yeah.
I want to give credit to Sarah of the Abyss, or at Sarah at least back on Twitter. They're often around the Honkai Star Rail community doing math and helping people out with that kind of stuff. But that's where I initially saw this chart that I took some issues with. This is no shade to them. I just kind of feel like it's not exactly the most accurate.
Look at the general. Damn. Jing Yuan. Look at him. Blade. What? Blade is better than Seele on damage? I don't think so. Imbabitor Lune is close to Blade? Man. Doctor Ratio. Doctor Ratio. Doctor Ratio sucks. Yeah, you're talking about bad design. I think Doctor Ratio totally goes. I think that they knew when they said, you know what, I'm gonna give this one for free. Man, I don't know, man. The only one that can actually and want to E6 Dr. Ratio probably is his own voice actor. I don't see nobody going for Ratio.
Representation of how character scaling has
I don't
been
like him
since those characters came out, especially when you consider things like front-loaded characters, back-loaded characters, the amount of cycles we're calculating for the amount of targets. I don't really feel like there's a perfect way to calculate it, but I don't feel like this is entirely honest, at least looking at the entire game.
You can't say that chart is dishonest because it doesn't cover every aspect of the game. Just no charts can cover every aspect, and I think discrediting Seraph, that is kind of an L move. But yeah, I mean, I just think this bro just doesn't like graphs.
And I can't wait for this to turn into a massive drama unnecessarily and be slandered in 70 different communities for saying this. So either way, if you take a chart and you have a certain amount of enemies and a certain amount of cycles, and you say every single character is going to fit confined to this, it's going to make every single character's power level look different, and it's not an ideal way.
I mean, his point is fair. Well, you got to understand. I understand the point is fair, but it's also like nonsensical. And you don't need to even say it because it's like, if you don't know that these are just numbers in a vacuum, you know, like that's a user issue. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's not a graph issue. It would be a community intellect issue because like everybody should know that all graphs should be taken with a grain of salt. You know what I'm saying?
To contest that power creep is a thing. You can see very obviously with the amount of damage that's going out with every single character that power creep is definitely a thing. It definitely exists. Now, whether or not it's a problem is completely up to you guys, because that depends on your playstyle. It depends on what you like to do. It depends on how many of these older units are appealing to you and how many of them you've really maxed out and invested in. But I do think that one thing that we can all agree on that is a big problem and definitely contributes to the power creep argument is the fact that there are not enough 4-stars coming out, and it really does make it feel like you have to pull the new 5-star because all of these new 4-star.
Damn, now that I think about it, yeah, I think he's right, to be honest. The perception, something that I didn't really think about it. The perception, not getting a 4 stars is a perception that it contributes to the perception that the power creep is indeed. First of all, I like to say power creep does exist. Of course, it does exist. But I'm not expecting Seele to clear Pollux like Brax says. Or, I mean, he was not like he says. That would be dishonest. He was using a quantum single DPS to as an example, even though, you know, Castris is an AOE DPS. I mean, but anyway, and yeah, what he says is actually right. So, not a 4-star in sight. And I don't think there's going to be any 4-star in sight, not even with Finon, which is crazy. It's actually detrimental to the, at least for the perception of the state of the game, like the way it goes, the way it's going. I'll put way more 4 stars. I don't understand why they're not doing it. Like, I don't know why. Is it hurting the business? I don't understand. 2.5 was the last 4-star Mose. It's we are currently in 3.3. I mean, 2 patches away from a whole year of not getting anything. It's crazy. I don't understand.
That have come out in the past. Like Moe's felt like really good for follow-up teams when that was relevant. Gallagher has been the GOAT, but like we've just been missing that sort of like, oh, this 4-star feels really good in this team, so I don't have to worry about pulling this character. And I think that does create a new level of FOMO that's almost more threatening than just making the.
Could it be that the 4-star they released were too strong? Like I understand if we treat the MC as a 4-star unit because it's free. I understand because the MC is actually the Reminiscence MC is the best free unit that we got so far. Is the best. Like investment wise, you just have him at E6 basically by playing the story. Gallagher is you have to pull the character. Maybe that's what they think, but I don't care what they think. They absolutely have to release 4-star units. They absolutely have to.
5-stars do a lot of damage.
It would really
so,
help them.
I would like to see more 4-stars in the game personally.
Totally.
And yeah, would it be nice if
it wouldn't fix anything? What Brax, what you should want to see is that there be a ceiling where no unit is allowed to pass, and every character be updated to that ceiling, and every new character not to surpass that ceiling. That is what would fix Honkai Star Rail's game state. More 4-stars isn't gonna do shit. It's not gonna do shit. So just rework the old units to be at the same power scaling as the new unit.
I don't think that he's right. It would totally help, especially the perception, like Brax is saying, which is I love that take. He's also right in the sense that yeah, it doesn't help power creep. That's right. It's not helping power creep, of course. But he's also right, to be honest. Brax is also right.
Units make new units not surpass the new balance and the new ceiling. It's that easy.
If the new characters were doing less damage,
and that's what they're doing with Silverwolf, right? I heard Silverwolf is going to become incredible, which I'm very, very, very excited.
That's what I heard.
Anybody who has Silverwolf to experience that. That's a great change.
Yes, but also at the same time, you got to understand that a lot of people complained in Genshin that like 4-stars were the best in the game,
Genshin.
and that they felt like every new 5-star just gets outclassed by like Xiangling. So like, why would you even get the new 5-star? And yeah. I think people are going to complain either way. There's going to be people that complain.
It's because you pull for the characters, you play with the characters that you like.
If there's power creep,
as long as they can function.
There's going to be people that complain if there isn't power creep.
Okay, so the video goes up to here, and I saw in the comment that he has a part 2, but we will close it right now. If depending on how it goes, I'll make the part 2. So what he's saying in the last Tectone, what Tectone is saying here, putting a ceiling, I guess if it's not putting a ceiling, I think that they should work a little bit more on. They should test maybe a little bit more their character. I think that they might not have the time, the energy to really, really control, to really, really put a. I mean, they do. Let's take a look at Finon. Incredible unit, nice animation. I mean, they are working in that regard. Animations, whatever. Maybe what they are not really paying attention to is the scaling, how it affects the environment, because that is really I wouldn't know how to begin doing that, to be honest. You have to be somebody that has developed the game from day one, basically, at least, and you have to be quite good. I think that they're not measuring that well. That's why we didn't really feel that kind of power creep back in 1. Let's say mid 1.0, 2.0, that's I think what is lacking, from Honkai Star Rail. Since we're talking about Finon, Tectone said in the beginning that he's going to revolutionize, and I think that yes, he's going to revolutionize, but not on the power level, on the mechanic level. It's just something that I don't like, to be honest. It's like, we talked a lot in my videos about Silverwolf, the ability that Silverwolf has, something that got lost in the sauce so many times. The ability to inflict the weakness. It's something that is supposed to be sacred, something hidden, something that a hacker could do. And Silverwolf was that, the hacker that could um, cipher the weakness and put it, implant the weakness. That was something beautiful. The fact that they got the fact that Silverwolf got released like 2 months after 1.0 also was interesting. But but that got trampled so hard, and that's what I actually fear that Honkai is doing. Not power creep and numbers and ceiling like Tectone is saying, but the mechanics. The mechanics are being butchered. That's the worst part of this. Not as much as power creep, because power creep exists. Yes, you do have to pull units, and Tectone says in 4 months you're gonna have to replace the unit. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I don't really see a problem in that, because 4 months is a lot of time. If you start saving in 4 months, you have a lot of jades to get the newest DPS and see if it works with the what you have. If not, I think that you are able to pull the sustain unit that goes better in that moment. So I don't think there's a problem with that, to be honest. I never had any problem. I'm free to play. Never. I know I've always been able to clear MOC, Apocalyptic Shadow, and whatnot. The thing that I'm worried about is the power creeping mechanics that Honkai is doing. I think that really lacking on innovations and stuff to do, stuff to try, and Finon just seems a total, like he implants the physical weakness. He doesn't need any teammates. He just goes solo. And what do you expect to happen? It just on a mechanic standpoint, it's bullshit. To be honest, it's real bullshit. He does what? He just goes alone and face everybody, and then he disappears, and then the team goes again. That's not fun, to be honest. That's just flashy. It's flashy, and it's not fun, to be honest. Fun is when you use the whole team. Why don't they put a unit that gives you ability to put a fifth unit, but that fifth unit is a quarter less effective or half effective, or as a quarter of the total power value of the unit. Things like that. Work on the team, not against the team. Finon is a teamless. Is just one-on-one. Doesn't make sense, to be honest. On a Honkai Star Rail 4-unit team, doesn't make sense. So yeah, I hope you liked it. If you enjoyed, let me know and see what we can do for the next video. Bye.